So we wanted to finish off with some thoughts or indeed highlighting some of the comments that we received as a result of our conversations with the companies, and also just highlight some of the learnings as well as a result. So clearly we're all operating in a very tight recruitment market, so I think there's a sense that this is another sourcing channel that can really assist in building the female talent pipeline at both mid and senior levels. Now, obviously, all programmes are open to men as well, and it's absolutely imperative that I stress that. However, some of these initiatives, and it has been commented from our discussions, they not only help the attraction of female talent, but they are also helping to improve female retention. So I need to sort of quote here, Man Group. They have witnessed positive momentum across the business, and particularly from senior stakeholders. The business is committed to achieving a gender-balanced workforce, and the initiative has created a very strong marketing message, both internally and externally, that can only help drive the company towards having an equal gender split. I think in a similar vein, when I was speaking with our contact at Fidelity, there's a sense that they have introduced people into roles from a far more diverse range of backgrounds, and clearly this has encouraged the hiring managers to think more laterally. So it's brought about, in terms of thinking about more laterally, in terms of skill sets that they're prepared to consider for roles, and the fact that these individuals are coming in with career breaks on their CVs. And I think this has brought about a change in working culture. It's brought about diversity of thought and has had a really good team impact. They've also commented that the returners have all demonstrated a very high level of motivation and have received good feedback from the business. I think you had some comments.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, we didn't spend much time on JP Morgan, but in our talk with JP Morgan, this diversity or the cognitive diversity aspect of returners is something that they very much highlighted. They have very much enjoyed the returners that they have hired so far, joining teams, bringing kind of a fresh perspective on things. They have found that, they're very motivated. They, interestingly enough, listen very well. They're very engaged. They bring kind of a fresh perspective, and have really found that that is very additive to the team dynamics of the areas that they have joined. Similarly, UBS is a firm that we haven't talked about, but one that we talked to. They have a formal career comeback program. Maybe many of you may be familiar with that because it's fairly well known. They too have had success with that career comeback program. Not only have they had success with kind of going out to the market and sourcing kind of a different caliber and a different type of talent, but in terms of those individuals coming and joining the UBS teams, they found them again very additive in terms of bringing fresh perspective, adding sometimes kind of new skill sets, also just I think bringing a different perspective on work, which really kind of adds and is very complementary to existing team dynamics. So they have been very pleased with their career comeback program to date.
I think finally, I just wanted to highlight some of the learnings that have been fed back to us. And again, I know Julianne will cover these in more detail later. I think everybody has said this is a very resource-intensive initiative, and it's not to be underestimated, especially for those who are running an initiative alongside their BAU. It can be tricky, and I know this firsthand, to obtain commitment from stakeholders to appoint somebody into a role who perhaps doesn't fit the traditional criteria that they're looking for, and also somebody who's got a career break on their CV. It's also quite tricky to obtain commitment from the business when we're talking about individuals that we don't have sight of yet, and we're talking about roles that are likely to come up in 6 months' time, and it's not clearly defined at the outset. But again, Julianne will, I'm sure, cover this off. All the firms have commented it's a very cost-effective way of recruiting an experienced hire cohort, but it's not a magic bullet. And I think the more you put in, the better the result. I think Fidelity also commented that many of their hiring has been done in support functions which have been based outside of London. and as such they've had to give consideration to advertising channels. If working with women returners, for example, you wouldn't necessarily just rely on the network. We need to also be proactive as firms and advertising more broadly. It was also commented that an initiative, in order for it to be effective, it should also be driven by the business and not just by HR. And for most firms, finally, I think this is a continuous learning process. There are no hard and fast rules around the proposition, but clearly we're getting a lot of traction in the market.